this 1957 dress pattern for quite a while, and although I have made the skirt portion of the dress, I had not made the full dress. I also knew that it was gonna take a lot of fabric, like 7 yards, because even when I tried to make the skirt portion, I didn't even have enough. I knew I was gonna have to go and buy a larger amount of fabric than I usually would for a dress from the 30s or 40s. One thing that I also need to preface this video by saying is that I love Madame Alexander dolls, and I have a large collection of them, and that started for me probably around after the pandemic started, when I think a lot of people developed different hobbies and things. So Madame Alexander created, I think it was the first American fashion doll for children, basically. She created Sissy, who came before Barbie in the 1950s, and there was also Elise, who is basically a smaller form of Sissy with a different face mold. And I actually have an Elise doll. She's an original 1950s Elise in her original outfit, and Elise dolls are easier to acquire than original Sissy dolls because they are very expensive. But I have seen many pictures on the internet, naturally, of Madame Alexander dolls with dresses on that are just like the dress that I had a pattern for. Well, and as you can see. So I thought I would make a dress with the pattern and make it with the materials that I think the Madame Alexander dolls would wear, because I thought that would just be adorable. And cotton is actually, it was like the perfect material to use for this project, and that's a very good thing because I needed a lot of this fabric, and cotton tends to be more affordable. Now, I tried finding pink striped cotton, just plain pink striped cotton, like she's wearing, and you'd think that that would be easy, like no problem, like they've got to have that in a store, and I couldn't find any. Like, I was surprised, but I couldn't find any. I ended up going with this. This is the dress I'm speaking of, if you couldn't tell. With this blue, a light robin's egg blue with these little pink flower accents. I think it looks very doll-like, while at the same time being very 50s. So were these dolls just dressed in very 50s outfits? Which I know they were, but is that how all the dresses were? Like, were the 1950s dresses just very doll-like? Who's copying who in this situation? So when I started work, I started with the bodice because I had never done the bodice before, and I figured that was most definitely gonna be more complicated than the skirt because I knew the skirt was very simple to make. It just takes a lot of fabric. The reason why this pattern calls for so much fabric is because of the skirt, of course. It was the 50s. The skirt is a clear sign of the times. I don't think skirts were this full. Like, skirts hadn't been that full commonly since the Victorian era. So you can really see the Victorian influence on 1950s fashion, especially when you're making a 1950s dress. I did take my sweet time making this dress. The days of me pushing really hard to get these dresses done are slowly, they're kind of dwindled. Like, I want to get back on it, making a new dress every week, but it's a lot when I have another job. So I made the collar as well, as you can see. Obviously my confidence in collar making hasn't been so good, but I did a really good job with this one. I think the material had something to do with it as well. I think cotton is a good material for collar making. Also, one thing I knew I wanted when I was making this dress was a lace trim, and I knew that it might turn out to be a little tacky looking, or it might look, I don't know, just not like very sophisticated looking, but I also kept in mind like the whole point of this was to dress like a doll. So if it looked a little tacky, you know, the dress is inspired by a doll, so That's kind of the point, I think. And so I chose this lace trim and I put it down the front and on the collar. I don't think it's too much. I was open to the possibility of it being too much, but it actually wasn't, and I like it. I didn't make a belt to go with this because there wasn't like a belt included with the pattern. I think the whole idea was that you add a belt that you've bought with this dress. So that's what I've done. I wish I had like a black patent belt because that seems to be what was popular, and I have seen dolls with these little black velvet belts. So I think someday I'm gonna have to make one of those because I like how they look. I want to make this dress again because I think cotton is like the best casual material. I actually do have a little bit of this fabric left over, and I think it's enough to make a matching dress myself for my 2001 Sissy doll. She's not an original 1950s doll, but she is a Sissy doll from Madame Alexander from like 2001, 2002. So I have patterns for lots of doll clothes, so I could potentially make another little matching dress with some of the fabric that I have left over from this dress. It just kind of gives me like a happy feeling to see, oh shit. This print and the colors with the lace just kind of makes me feel happy, and I think it's just like the feeling of something so, you know, whimsical as a doll dress just coming to life, you know, to a human size for a human to wear. It's just kind of like dreamy, I think. I'm really proud of the job that I did on this. I think it turned out very, very well. And that's kind of why I want to make another one, because I want to do a good job again on the same dress. And I actually already bought fabric to make the dress again, but maybe I'm thinking maybe short-sleeved this time. Yes, so that was my recent project. And I also just revealed to everyone that I have a huge doll collection, and I hope you enjoyed watching, and I'll see you in my next video.